Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here to review a movie that I watched last night. Now, first off, I wanted to say that, originally yesterday I was going to review a show, the new show with Brie Larson. I thought it would be fun to laugh at it. It's this show called Lessons in Chemistry, and it's had these really cringeworthy commercials, and it has this cringeworthy color grading where, they sucked out all the color, and it has like this real, it looks terrible. And it looks like something that I do not want to watch at all, seriously, to enjoy it. It just looks like something that's like complete trash. But when I started watching the show, I was like, wait a second. It's a lot worse than cringe. It starts off and it raises all the red flags with a modern movie or show. And then I looked up the show, and it turns out this person in the show is not even based on a real person. And to me, I think it almost was like false advertising, because the show to me looked like a true story show. It looked like something where, it's some sort of a inspiring feminist story about some scientist woman, and I thought, okay, this will be fun to laugh at, but maybe it'll be good because I really like true story stuff. I really love true story movies and shows. But no, it is totally fake, and it's based on some sort of a book by a woman who never lived in the 1950s when this show takes place. So that was another red flag. A show that takes place in the 50s that's written by someone who never lived in the 1950s. Specifically a show where it has some sort of messaging and it's like a feminist thing. That's a big red flag, because you know exactly what that's going to be like. I set my movie in the 50s, but I'm not trying to lecture people about some sort of a social message about what it was like in the 50s. It's just a story with characters that's really good. It doesn't have a message. So I decided, no, I'm not going to review that show after all. I thought I would have if it was a true story, but it's not a true story. So sorry if you were looking forward to me reviewing that, which, yeah. So this movie that I'm reviewing, it's called The Shop Around the Corner. And it's actually based on a book. I haven't ever read the book, which, I don't think that I'm missing out on much, because a lot of these older films, they were very faithful to the books to a fault sometimes. There were a lot of adaptations because, they didn't really have a lot of original ideas in Hollywood, even back then. They had a lot of adaptations that, they were basically the whole books in movie form, like Great Expectations. That's something where I don't think I'll ever need to read the book, because it's just so, it seems like it's really detailed to the point of where I would be really impressed if something in that movie wasn't in the book, and vice versa. This movie, it has a story that I really wasn't interested in when I first watched it. It's one of those times where I was just picking something out to watch, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to like it or not. It's all about these employees at this department store, this small little family-run department store run by this guy who I guess he's supposed to be Hungarian, I believe, Mr. Madacek, and It's all about the star employee, or I guess the senior employee is what you would call him. And he is a clerk, and he's played by Jimmy Stewart. And the movie starts off with this girl who comes into the department store, and she wants to work there, and he says there's no jobs, and then through this little trick that she does by selling this crappy cigarette box to someone, she gets the job. And meanwhile, he is corresponding with someone over letters, basically talking about, whatever, and he's falling in love with this person. So it was and the dating ad, it was kind of like a dating ad in this newspaper, and it's surprising because they never really show or talk about, like, if anyone else wrote to her. They never show that, like, oh, didn't anyone else write to this person who put an ad in the paper? Like, at this whole time that she's had that ad up, like, no one else responded except Jimmy Stewart. Like, that's just total, like, maybe they talk about that in the book, I don't know. But I thought that was kind of odd. But they both really like each other in the letters, and little did they know both of them are working at this department store, and they do not get along at all. In fact, both of them they like to play mind games with each other a lot, and sometimes it's a little cringeworthy to watch because they both take things a little too far, and they end up, obviously getting together by the end, but still they like to play some mind games. Like, I think that the person who wrote this movie, he probably should have written a spy movie after not the movie, the book, because it really seems like he's good at writing characters who are very manipulative and kind of like, I don't know, they like to play like these really sinister mind games, though, and yeah. And then the manager, he starts to not like Jimmy Stewart anymore, which eventually leads to him being fired, Jimmy Stewart being fired. Then, this actually perfectly aligns with this whole evening where he is supposed to go on a date with the main character, and he goes there. And what I really loved about what he did, though, with his mind games, was that he came into this restaurant and he started talking to this woman who he discovered was the one he worked with before. He kind of like just pretended that he didn't correspond with her at all. And I think it was actually a really good choice because it was kind of like a test to see if she would actually be nice to him regardless, because at this point, her date hadn't shown up yet. And by the way, there was a really weird thing that they did in this movie, and I have no idea why people would do this back then. But apparently people used to call dates appointments, because she says several times that, like, I have an appointment, I'm late for an appointment, and he says he has an appointment that evening. What the hell? Like, why would you want to call a date an appointment? I mean, that is the last thing that I would want to associate with a date. Like, an appointment is an appointment. Like, a date is a date. Like, why did people make that a thing back then? I will never figure that out. Like, that really made me, like, want to throw up. Like, it gives me a stomachache to think about. Like, oh, I'm getting ready to go to my appointment with Mrs. Blank. Yay! It's going to be at this restaurant. What are you talking about? Appointments are at doctor's offices or dentist offices or wherever like that. Oh, no, I'm going to an appointment. Like, what the hell is that? Like, why would people say that? In fact, like, let's look up the definition of appointment, because I'm curious to see, like, if it's originally like a a neutral term. Oh, it is. An arrangement to meet someone at a particular time and place. So it was kind of like a neutral term, which to me was a big mistake. I think that is I don't like that. So, anyways, she acts really mean to him, and I really love these older movies because when they want you to feel something, they really make you feel it. With the way that these characters act, like if a guy is really mean to an innocent girl, like you really feel it. And in this case, you really felt like sorry for this guy because he thought that this girl was different when he wrote to her through letters, and then he meets up with her. And just because she doesn't know that he was the one who wrote to her, she's treating him like trash. And it was really, really kind of like upsetting because I got to admit, I really identified with this movie. Like, I really identified with the whole, like, dating aspect. Like, it just seemed very, very relevant to today. Because I have a feeling a lot of these bitches nowadays who are, they're hashtag single for life or hashtag crazy cat lady. I have a feeling that if they had like corresponded through letters to the guys that they treated like trash and rejected their whole lives, I have a feeling that they would end up together instead of, the way that it's ended up nowadays where it seems like a lot of men and women are very, like, isolated from each other because of, feminism and society in general. And so I really feel like this movie, it's a really warm and comforting movie. Like, it is such a... It's such an inviting movie. It's such a good movie. Like, I could watch this movie every day for the rest of the year, and I wouldn't get tired of it at all. Now, we find out that the reason that the manager was treating Jimmy terribly was because he was upset about his wife possibly cheating on him, and he thought that Jimmy Stewart probably was the one. But then after he already fires him, he finds out that it was actually another employee, and then he goes to the back office and he tries to kill himself. And I love this scene too, because and I know that they probably weren't allowed to show this attempted suicide because, censorship. But I felt like it was extremely effective, and I felt like it was so much more effective than if they had shown what he was trying to do, because I couldn't figure out what he was trying to do to begin with. I really felt like that scene was kind of disturbing. And another scene that was very sad. This movie really highlights a lot of the problems in modern romance, modern dating, the modern dating age. And he actually has to stay at the hospital because he had a breakdown and he was just fucked up. So then Jimmy Stewart actually takes over and he rehires him. And I gotta say too, before I get to the end of this movie and what ends up happening with them getting together at the end, because that they're gonna get together, obviously, since this is a romantic comedy movie. I really loved the love interest in this movie. I thought that she was extremely beautiful. I thought that she was extremely nice and a really pleasant person and a really just good person, all around. She seemed like an actual good person and not like some of these shitty actresses that they have nowadays in these romantic movies that I don't give a fuck about. Like Jennifer Lawrence, ew. I don't want to fall in love with her. Gross. But this woman, I fell in love with her like from the moment she was on screen. That's how amazing this woman was in this movie. And I will also say, the key to romantic comedies is to make the audience love this character. If you don't like that character, you're not going to like the movie. Because I'm telling you, too, that all the women who watch this movie, you can be damn sure that they fell in love with Jimmy Stewart from the opening scene. I mean, come on. It's Jimmy fucking Stewart. And apparently, they remade this movie as You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Ew, what a fucking downgrade that is. That's like going from a 5-star restaurant to McDonald's. I will be reviewing that movie, by the way. I will watch it because I am curious to see like what they did to update it to make like a 1990s version of it. Because it looks like trash. I mean, just the title alone, You've Got Mail. Like, what a fucking cringeworthy, dated title that is reference to, like, when you used to get email, you would get the, You Got Mail. It's like, fuck you! I don't want, like, just shut up, computer. I know that I've got mail. It's got a notification on it. God. So near the end of this movie, Jimmy Stewart, it's also funny because as soon as the girl finds out that he becomes manager of this place, she faints and she just completely loses it. It's like her worst living nightmare. And then he comforts her and they have great chemistry together, but he is still playing mind games with her to the point of where he writes her a letter and then he watches her read the letter in front of her. Like, it's really, really hilarious. But also really, really sweet. See, men like romantic comedies, guys. They just like them when they're done well. You know, that's the thing. They like romantic comedies when they're done well. You know, like how they were done in old movies like this. So near the end, they have a big date set up with each other. Jimmy Stewart tries to set up and he manipulates something again so that he can get the specific present that he wants to. I thought that was hilarious. You know, like he played this game where he had another guy in the movie, another friend who was really cool too. He had him talk to her and kind of finagle his way into getting a wallet for Christmas instead of the stupid Tachanya box that she was obsessed with. And finally at the end, they have a confrontation and he is still playing mind games up until the last minute of the movie, guys. He is that much of like a manipulator. He is that much of a gamer. You know, like women on dating apps nowadays. What's one of the main things that they say? I'm not looking for games. Which is a big eye roll because that's all they're looking for is games. But he's pretended that he met up with the guy who wrote letters to her, and he's this guy named Matthias Pumpkin. And he says, like, she's going to be Mrs. Pumpkin by the end of the weekend. And then he says that he's fat, and she hides her disappointment. And now here's the part that I didn't like with her. Even though I love the movie, I couldn't help but cringe at this. And now, at the beginning of the movie, the ad that she put in the newspaper, you know what it says? It says like something like tall or short, fat or skinny, good looking or bad looking. I want our minds to meet or something like that. Like, oh, what a bunch of bullshit that was, fucking leading lady, like hiding your disappointment that he's fat. Like, what a piece of shit. Like, I got so pissed off at that at the end. Like, you know, he was trying to make him sound as bad as possible, to be fair. And then he says, like, that the guy wants to live off of her salary. And then she's like, I had no idea he was this materialistic. That was really funny. But the whole movie was really funny too, by the way. But I just couldn't help but cringe at that, because she said at the beginning, I don't care how you look. I want our minds to meet. And it's like, yeah, okay. Total bullshit. Total bullshit. Then at the very end, she finds out, and they kiss. And that's the end of the movie. And I will say, there are two big flaws that I have with the movie. One of them is not really a big flaw, but then again, the other one isn't either, because I love this movie. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's another perfect movie, obviously. First off, this movie ends really suddenly. Like, as soon as they start smushing faces together, the movie ends. And that just kind of irritated me, because I know that a lot of old movies, they end with people kissing, which, I won't say anything more about that, but, it felt so sudden and just such like a drop-off. Like, why did you have to just abruptly end it there? Like, that was so shitty and so disappointing and kind of like, oh. Because then this really loud music comes on and it's like, oh. Another flaw, which isn't really a flaw, again, because I love this movie, is that I really wanted to see more scenes of these characters selling things. You know, there's this part at the beginning of the movie where this woman, this fat woman, is not sure if she wants this Tachanya box. And the main girl, they never really say her first name. They just call her Miss Novak. So I that's why I'm just calling her the girl, is because I want to know what her first name is. She goes up to this fat woman and she says, look, this music box, you're going to really love it. You know, everyone's buying them and it's a really good price. And she's like, but I hate this Tachanya music. Every time I'm going to have to get a piece of candy, I have to listen to this trash. And Jimmy Stewart is really excited, because that's why he said that these would not make for good things to sell in the shop. And then she's like, oh no, well actually, you know, you eat a lot of candy, I bet. And so every time you're going to open up this candy box, it's going to make you more conscious of the candy that you eat, the amount of candy. It's going to make you candy conscious. And I thought that was really hilarious. And she totally fell for it and bought it. And she even sold her. She made her buy it for more than it was worth too, like $5.50 or something, like crazy like that back then. And so then they started selling more of those in the shop, and of course they failed because you couldn't play that game with every customer. You know, that was a stupid choice. But I really wanted to see more scenes like that, since they were working in this department store. Like, I just wanted to see, like, maybe a couple more scenes of, like, Jimmy Stewart and her selling things to people, maybe, like, competing with each other or something. But I'm nitpicking. I really love this movie. You know, it was such a good movie to watch. Even though it's October, even though Halloween is pretty soon, I'm glad that I watched this movie. I would give this movie a full chocolate cake. Now just imagine, you know, I like to eat a piece of cake every once in a while. You know, around the birthday season, you have my birthday, then you have another birthday, then you have Safi's birthday. It's like 3 birthdays in a row, basically. And I eat a lot of birthday cake. And this movie, to me, it is a lot like, you know, you just scarf down like a full cake, like a full delicious cake. You get it all to yourself. That's this movie. Because I feel like everyone's gonna really have their own, like, enjoyable experience with this movie. Like, see, this is an example of appealing to the four quadrants. Not Marvel. Not fucking Shang-Chi or the Eternals or, you know, those other PC Disney movies where they're cringe pieces of trash. This movie, The Shop Around the Corner, where it's a genuinely good movie, it has a good story, it has comedy, there's no divisiveness in it or political agenda bullshit. It's just a good story with good characters. It has a lot of good messages too, like don't judge a book by its cover, which, you know, women haven't really learned that lesson, as it turns out. And, you know, a lot of great messages in this movie. You know, a lot of great things to take away. Like, I would say it's definitely a good movie for people of all ages to watch too. Because I would really want a kid to see this movie before they get into the dating world, so that they can, you know, be aware, at least, of a lot of things that... Anyways, this movie, again, I loved it, and I will be reviewing the remake tomorrow, maybe, or maybe Tuesday or something. So, yeah, I highly recommend it, and I gotta say, too, Margaret Sullavan, she's the one who played the main character. And I gotta say, like, I was really saddened to learn that she committed suicide after she got really ill with, like, this hearing loss issue. And she even quit acting, like, 9 years before her death. And I thought, that's really sad. You know, she was such a nice character in this movie, and she seemed like a great love interest. I mean, I gotta say, like, every time I'm watching these old movies, I'm getting, like, a new celebrity crush, because the celebrities nowadays, you really can't crush on them at all. I mean, they're just so unlikable and obnoxious and disgusting. There's really nothing to like. But somebody like this, she is, like, perfection. And it just shows, because she got married, like, what, 4 or 5 times, including to the great William Wyler. Like, she really, yeah, she was wifey material for sure. And I wonder what other movies of hers are good to watch, because I would love to see more of her. And obviously, anytime I find a Jimmy Stewart movie, I might watch that. Although, it's just like with Stanley Kubrick movies, where I'm a little conscious about watching too many of those, because I don't want them to run out. You know, like, I'm not excited for the day where I run out of Hitchcock movies. I'm not excited for the day that's coming very soon where I run out of Sharon Tate movies. I'm not excited for the day where I run out of Jimmy Stewart movies, because these are actors that there'll never be anyone like them again, and never be directors like them again. And you just have to look back at these things, and eventually you run out of things that you haven't already seen. And so, yeah. And I think, too, like, if I ever do, like, top or actresses from the 1940s or 50s or 30s ranked, it's going to be really, really hard. Because, like, I'm going to have to watch, like, every movie from those time periods, and just, like, I will, like, have an attack, like an anxiety attack, trying to rank all those actresses, because they're just so beautiful, and they're just so wholesome and good, seemingly good people on screen. And you really, really like these people, and you want them to succeed, you want them to be happy, unlike the people in movies nowadays who you just want to not see on screen. So please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought about The Shop Around the Corner. Do you know of any other Margaret Sullavan movies that would be good to watch? Because she was in like 22 things, and it looks like this was probably the highest rated one, because it's like a classic movie, and I would totally agree. I mean, I don't know what else came out in 1940, but I would say like this is best picture material for sure. Like just the idea alone of pen pals falling in love. I know that seems like a no-brainer because a lot of people associate pen pals with romance, which, that's not always the case. But it really, really was a unique idea to me that I love. Like, it's such it's such a good movie. But there was one last thing. There was a time in this movie where Mr. Matichek was taking this kid to Christmas dinner, and he said he's going to get apple strudel with vanilla sauce. And it was the same thing with the appointments for me, where I thought that maybe sauce was slang for ice cream or something, because I was like, is there such a thing as vanilla sauce with strudel? And I looked it up, and apparently there is. I've never had it before, but usually when I think of like having those types of desserts, we usually have like ice cream or whipped cream or something. I've never heard of like vanilla sauce, except I guess with like cinnamon rolls maybe. Does that stuff count as like vanilla sauce? I don't know. So please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more movie reviews like this. We will be reviewing Freddy vs. Jason later today, and so goodbye everybody, see you soon.